Hello and welcome back to Made Possible by Pop Culture, the podcast, season 2. I'm Danielle Turchiano, and this is the podcast where I invite guests to come on and share the stories from pop culture's past and present that have greatly influenced them. Now, if you're keeping an eye on your calendar, then you already know we're in fall TV season. And yeah, TV releases new shows all year round, but fall TV season is still a celebration. A lot of new things come out, a lot of returning shows return. And that includes NBC's Found, which is about to launch season 2, which leads me to today's guest, actor Arlen Escarpeta from Found. Now, he's going to be on to talk about that show, what you can expect in season 2, but of course, his early childhood influences, what he's loving that he immerses himself in when he's not working in the intense world of Found. And, you may know him from other shows as well. He started back in the early aughts on Boston Public, but he's been on great things like American Dreams, The Oath, David Makes Man. He's also in movies like We Are Marshall, Friday the 13th, Final Destination 5, Whitney. He's also a producer of some projects, and he'll talk about an upcoming one. So stick around because we've got a great conversation coming up. Well, thank you so much, Arlen, for being on the podcast today. Obviously, you've had a very long career in your short age, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but I'm excited. As everyone who's watching this on YouTube can see, Found is your current project and is about to premiere season 2. And I'm excited to finally get to talk about the show. But before we dive into that, I do always love to start these with the influences, like where you got your inspiration. And I want to talk about your childhood inspiration first, because I find it so fascinating. Like, you've had such a long, illustrious career in terms of the types of roles you've taken. And I am curious if anything from your very young years kind of set that up. Like, if there was something you were watching, listening to, a person, a thing, whatever, that you were like, that, I want that kind of career.
I'll say for me early on, it was definitely cartoons. Cartoons are big for me, specifically. Obviously, there's the Ninja Turtles, there's Transformers, Thundercats, He-Mans. I can keep going, right? But cartoons for me growing up were my staple. That's what you watched as a kid. That's what you aspire to be. I want to be a Leonardo. I want to be this. I want to be that. As I got older, TV shows that weren't cartoons got introduced, and that, I think, to me, really kind of set me up, just because I used to just watch it and love it and enjoy it. I used to watch Night Court as a kid. Like, I don't know what I was doing watching Night Court, but it made me chuckle every now and then. I'm sure a majority of the jokes went over my head, but it was a thing for me. And then once I got into the world of actual, auditioning and acting and really going after it, I realized that my Rolodex of TV, film, and cartoons, I was studying without knowing I was studying. And
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I was going to say, I think one of the things, saying things go over your head, I think that's like the best kind of programming to watch when you're a kid, because you enjoy it for a certain level. And then when you watch it back a little bit older and you catch the layer you missed the first time, it adds so much more meaning.
100%. And even now, I still literally love TV. I whether I'm binging a show or it's a slow burn show, good reviews, bad reviews, I'm watching, just because, you just never know.
And we will get to what that current stuff is in a bit, but you mentioned Leonardo, which I have to assume is from the Ninja Turtles. And I want to go back, because you said, you called him out like he was your favorite. So I want to talk about which Leonardo are we talking about, which iteration, and also what was it about that turtle out of all of them, or out of all of the characters? Because I will say, I think it says a lot. I was a Leonardo too, but I think I'm curious if we have the same reasons.
For me, I think Leonardo is probably, honestly, I think all the turtles have been very consistent. Whether it was the earliest version, from the cartoons, from the comic books, leading even up to now to this newest version that's out. They've been very consistent with Leonardo being the turtle that carries the most amount of weight um, on the surface. That's because there's Raphael, but we're not going to go there, right? Um,
We can. I don't see why not.
Raphael carries his weight and trauma very different. Leonardo has good balance, and I fancy myself someone who also tries to have that balance. I feel like I do, but behind closed doors, when Leo is by himself, there is a little bit of emptiness there. There is a sadness. He doesn't get to be the smart one like Donatello all the time. He doesn't always get to have fun like Michelangelo. Raphael gets to go off on the handle and everyone goes, it's just Raph being Raph, right? Leonardo, on the other hand, has to show up always. And Master Splinter asks him to show up and be that for the other brothers and sons. So yes, I definitely feel like I am a Leonardo. And I'm the only boy. I have all sisters. Um, they definitely take care of me, but I feel like I definitely take care of them as well. So yeah, I'm a Leonardo.
You talked about, all the iterations, but which was the one that you feel like you got into first, or that you maybe not saw first, but the one that you like, this was the version that you loved once you did see it?
Tell you exactly when. It was the Ninja Turtles movie when it first came out. I don't even know if I knew we were going to see it. I don't know if I knew we were going to see it. But what I remember the movie ending and dancing in the aisle saying Cowabunga, dude. Like I went surfer to the umpteenth degree because I was like, no, I found my animal, like my soul being. This is who I am. And I remember being on my rollerblades, and I don't know if you remember, they have these like curtains that you would roll down that would have like little slits of wood or slats of wood at the bottom. So
No.
in my aunt's house, I would take those out. And then I went to the kitchen and I sharpened the ends like a knife, broke them, and then I put the little cross at the bottom so they could be like handles. And I would skate around my neighborhood like I was Leonardo, chopping grass, trees. It didn't matter. Just living my best life. And then obviously the cartoon version of it is dear to my heart because the voices, which I'm going to go see the gentleman. I plan to go see them at their next con.
I have a friend who's still, I will say, as the years have gone on, I feel like I haven't kept up with it, but I have a friend who is very into it. You said con, I thought you were going to say something else because they just released this like van toy for the turtles, and it was at Comic-Con, but I thought you were going to talk about the Toy Expo.
You got to call it a paddy wagon. Otherwise, some Ninja Turtle fan.
That's true. They're going to get mad at me. Always get mad at me. It's just how it is. I want to go back because hearing you tell that story about the rollerblades and essentially ruining your family's decorations, they must have been very supportive because they obviously allowed that. What level did you take this fandom to when you were a kid back then, as we're talking about things like toys and you creating your own versions of things? Was that something that they kind of embraced and you had all of the gear and all of the action figures, or were you more focused on the storytelling that was provided to you in the movies, in the cartoon, in the comics?
So I definitely didn't have the gear. I didn't even have a lot of the toys. At the time, we weren't well off enough, for me to be getting all of those things. So it was a lot of imagination. It was a lot of creativity, making my own, like, mask and bandana and stuff like that. I felt like a turtle, even though I didn't have the things leading up to me as an adult now. I have all the toys. Anything Ninja Turtle, I probably buy. It's like breathing to me now. So anything that I couldn't have when I was younger, I absolutely have now.
I feel like there's so many of us do that. I was similar. I mean, I don't know if it was that we didn't have the money to afford it or the things I wanted just didn't maybe exist or I didn't know they existed. Like I tried to make my own um device to talk to the turtles because I didn't feel like I was in April, but I love that compact communicator that she had. And I was like, that feels easy enough to replicate. Like my mom had makeup, just steal one of hers.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. I feel like that they should sell that now. I would totally buy that now.
In phone form, 100%, absolutely.
So you mentioned the movie. After you had that moment in the movie where you were just like, I'm all in, and you're like dancing in the aisles and everything, were you the kid that like watched the show every time it came on live? Like, did you rope your friends into it? Like, how did this become a part of your life?
It was family. The Turtles were family, and I love that they had this strong family, and their goal was always to keep their family together. And me being with my family, that's what I felt. And so that I think that was a string that really kind of just leaked me. And so yes, live on air, 100%. I still have someplace comic books that my aunt bought me from some. I think it might even been like Kmart or like this is when you could find things just because it obviously now would be like money memorabilia,
Mm.
but just like every now and then pop up with something for me. They knew I loved the Ninja Turtles, and so whenever something that they could grab me something, they would just like just drop it off to me. So yeah.
Do you feel like over time, you were talking about Leonardo earlier and feeling like him, do you feel like over time, as the show evolved, as the franchise really evolved, did you change? Did you feel like there were moments where, okay, you know what, at this stage in my life, maybe I am more of a Raphael? And how did you, I guess, deal with the changes?
So this is very interesting because as I've gotten older, I've now even viewed the turtles almost as if you think what is that Matthew McConaughey movie Interstellar?
Mm,
Think of the turtles as being standing back to back to back to back, and one is as much as they are different, they're very much one, right? So for me, there's definitely Leonardo. There's a Michelangelo in there. There's a Donatello. There's a Raphael. There's even a Master Splinter in there, right? So yes, I'm a little bit of all of them at different times, and clearly you can lean into it from how much you've matured, how much have you grown,
right.
how much have you still kept in touch with your inner child, i.e. the Michelangelos and so forth. Uh, it's really interesting that a cartoon, that started as a comic book and everything like that, had so many layers to it that even now as an adult, still relate to.
Yeah. I mean, I think also that speaks to like if it didn't have that, it's not just you who wouldn't be talking about it. Like the franchise wouldn't exist anymore if it didn't have those layers because nobody would have said, let's continue it or let's bring it back or let's, do anything with this IP. It would have just fizzled. That being said, though, I feel like that when you have that as something you love so much, I feel like there's a pressure on what that is because of what it means to you. Do you feel like your love for this affected how you viewed other things in general, in pop culture, in art, etc., like in fandom?
I think honestly, Ninja Turtles, specifically cartoons across the board, and how I grew up, I definitely romanticized life. You know, beginning, middle, end, problem, hero, solve problem, be a good guy, everything will be okay. Uh, I think honestly, Ninja Turtles, specifically cartoons across the board, and how I grew up, I definitely romanticized life. Beginning, middle, end, problem, hero, solve problem, be a good guy, everything will be okay. Uh, Real life is not like that. Real
Right.
life is very much more like the graphic novel, Last Ronin. We'll stay in the turtle theme, where it's not always a happy ending, and there is pain and trauma and things that come with it. And I recognize that, but I still absolutely hold on to the romanticized version of it too,
Hmm.
because that's got to be the goal. That's the goal. The goal is to be whole and happy. Reality is it's broken up in pieces. So I search for the goodness and the things that make sense in real life. And when they don't, I say, okay, you know what? This is part of the storyline. We'll get there. We'll turn a corner. We'll figure it out. We're gonna solve this problem. And if it doesn't solve, we'll to be continued.
Yeah. I mean, because there is also, I think, a depth to that. Like, well, from my memory of because I will be honest and say I don't really think I watched the first couple of seasons of the early Turtles because I was very young and I feel like I didn't care until it got a little bit deeper in. So I was already coming in maybe a little bit late and maybe the evolution of it had changed. But from what I remember of storytelling of that era in general is exactly what you're talking about. There was a lot of formula, especially for kids' TV, of like, you have to resolve this and you have to resolve it well. And you have to put that lesson in of like, here are the good, here are the bad. And even if the good guys sometimes make mistakes, like they have to learn the lesson, they have to come back to being good at the end, which is not how life works, but also I would say not how like media works today.
No, no, there was always a lesson. I think it's so funny because now I think it's the antithesis of that. You know, they really very much lean into the trauma, but that's
Right.
us people. You know, I think we like trauma TV. We enjoyed the pain. We want to bleed now. You know, it's part of healing, I guess.
Well, it's funny that you say that because obviously, I mean, Found is definitely that is a core value of Found is like these characters have all had trauma in their lives. And they are at various levels, I would argue, of healing. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I am curious about even your modern influences and comparing them to some of the things that you loved as a younger kid. How much of embracing that kind of more serious, sometimes darker side of humanity is something you wanted to do for your own growth and understanding versus it's just a challenge as an actor and it's a place you can go that maybe is very different and you want to be able to show that side and show that like you have an actual skill here, you're not just playing yourself.
It's been interesting. When people meet me, I very much have a light. I'm bright. I'm optimistic. All of those things are there. When it comes to the work in acting and TV and film and the jobs that I've done, even now leading up to Found, and I don't know if it's just how I am or who I am, but there's very much a little bit of emptiness that I always carry with me. And it really does come across in my work. A lot of the characters that I play are usually missing a little something. There's something there that's not all the way a full circle. And I have a great barometer for being able to allow you in. Uh, Whether I'm, reading a storybook to kids, during the Dr. Seuss week, for Read Across America, or I'm, on screen playing Zeke and really tapping into the agoraphobia of him not being able to get out and having a piece of him that is no longer there because he can't leave his home. It's just something that's there within me that I've learned. It's my superpower. And I think a lot of actors would probably tell you who you are as a person, how you grew up, how you learned how to love, how you learned how to manage your feelings. That is your superpower, to be different, to be dynamic, to be not the other person. I believe there are tons of talented actors that could have been able to play Zeke, but I don't believe that they would have brought what I brought. They would have brought something that's directly attached to them. And thankfully, what NK was looking for, what NBC saw in me was something that they said, no, this fits. Zeke and Arlen, they connect, they make sense. And being in Zeke's shoes now, I 100% couldn't see myself playing any other character on the show or anything. It's very much feeding me as much in real life as I am, playing the character.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about that too, just in terms of like what you're bringing, because I am curious about like when you talk about what you're bringing that is unique, how much of it is from your life versus how much of it is influenced by things that you've loved or that you've said someone else did this wrong, I want to do it better.
I think Bruce Lee said it best, right? You got to be like water; it's got to flow. I shouldn't always know where it's coming from. When you're in the work and you are in a scene, you never know what it's going to bring up or dig up. The writers write an amazing episode, and by the time that episode finishes, sometimes I'm thinking about something that might have happened earlier that week or years ago when I was a little kid, like, oh man, that's so interesting. Going through Zeke's trauma, it allows you to tap into your own. And then sometimes I read a script, I'm like, oh, you know what? This is very reminiscent of the time when, and I'm able to then invite my own weight into the story, and and then try to navigate it and make it make sense. And obviously, the camera does their thing; they add the music underneath, and you want to be a blank slate for emotion as an actor. You want to let it splash and be messy, and then you lose yourself in it.
I know that we're coming into season 2, and this is more of a season 1 question, but like there was so much time spent where I'm sure you had to do work off camera to figure those things out, a lot of those things out. Like we knew some of what, or I will say the audience knew some of what Zeke's trauma was, but not the full picture. And even toward the end of season 1, when we learned who took him, it still is not maybe the full picture of the dynamics in the family and everything. What do you do to build all of that? And how early did you have to build it for this character? Did you feel like you needed to know upfront exactly what happened to him in order to play where he is when we meet him?
I think we're very much still unpacking a lot of that. I think there's pieces there that even Zeke hasn't fully shared with anyone, as far as we know on screen thus far. For me, what I was told early on, with Zeke's agoraphobia, trauma that he carries, when he was taken, what age he was taken. That's all for me. That's all I really needed to start with.
Okay.
Age is very important because I'm like, okay, what? I go back to me. What was he watching at the time? What was he doing as a kid at the time? What that will tell me where he might have hit a ceiling from a emotional standpoint.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And that will dictate for me how mature and how grown Zeke is. Even moving forward, a lot of people want to know what's happening with Zeke and Lacey. Both Zeke and Lacey are very much younger version of themselves emotionally inside. So for them to get to that place where they're like, oh, I really like you. We're a couple. Let's do this. For them to get to that place, there's a lot of little kid emotional baggage that still has to be unpacked. Like right now, Zeke and Lacey would probably be happy just, sitting on the bleachers, sharing lunch together. That's what it is because of that emotional trauma that happened when they were younger. So that's what I started with Zeke, was just I wanted to know his age. I wanted to know when and where and who, and that kind of shaped the story for me. And since then, I've had some great conversation with NK. We've been able to just unpack little things here or there, and then I share some of my story. She goes, "Oh, that's so interesting. That's very much in line with Zeke's this or Zeke's."
Oh, good.
That. We just we mix it all up in a bowl and have fun with it.
I mean, one of the things that I loved in season 1 was that they like made the character explicitly say he has a therapist, because I was very concerned about most of these characters all the way through, because I wasn't entirely sure who was dealing with what and how. Where are you in terms of how do you feel about his healing journey, about how fast he should is maybe an unfair word, but how fast you want to see him get over, get past, move on versus just cope?
I don't know if there's a timeline. I really, really don't, only because, and this is the question that I ask myself a lot of times with Zeke. If Zeke got over the trauma and the fear that has a hold of him, if he was able to get out of that world, I wonder if it would affect how much he is grounded in, within the team. Sometimes, your baggage that you carry is very much becomes who you are. I believe even if Zeke is able to leave his home, next episode, Zeke is outside. I believe that there's still going to be a piece of him that is still going to be in a bubble. It has to be, until the whole world changes, because the world doesn't change. Zeke's trauma and fear is not just one person. It's outside. It's the world is not a happy place. People are not the nicest people. People are not who we romanticize them to be. i.e., me in cartoons. Like it's not always a good ending. So even if Zeke was able to get outside, I think it's going to be a better question of how does he carry that weight moving forward, realizing that even though I am outside now, I still feel heavy a little bit. And what does that mean?
I think I also was thinking of it more in terms of like for you as an actor, just so you don't have to go to these traumatic places all the time. Maybe that's part of the fun of the show because it is like a high adrenaline trauma.
I'll say this: it's where you want to be as an actor. If I was really good at comedy, I would dig deep in my comedy, right? I love telling stories of drama and heck, I love it.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't as much as it feels heavy leaving those scenes and it being obviously traumatic for me as an actor to go
Right.
through emotions and everything like that. It's also a healing process. It forces me to talk about it, to digest it, to think about it. It brings up things that I might have buried away. So in a way, it's also healing.
Okay. What do you feel like looking back on season one, there was a certain episode that was most healing for you in that way? Because I will say there was, I don't remember the episode number, but there was a moment between Zeke and Margaret where he was talking about like he wants to do better. Like it seemed like he really was, it was the one with the reservation with the indigenous missing woman. And it seemed like he really wanted to leave at that point to like try, but he couldn't get himself there, right? But her response to him was very much like she was telling her story about, how she has to get to the bus station at a certain time, otherwise they're closed. And it
Yeah.
felt like she was very much normalizing the way these behaviors have become their coping mechanisms. And I'm curious if that is something that is healing for you in a way as an actor, I guess, to say like, it's the inch, right? He took an inch step towards he wants to, he can't yet, but the inch and the awareness of he wants to is enough.
I think that episode specifically,
You don't also have to speak to that specifically if there's a better example, but that's the one that like I feel like is stuck in my head for months and months.
tying into that episode, I do feel that who we are, how we become who we are, should be normalized. Um, I think what Margaret said to Zeke in that moment is, "You're okay. You're not. There's nothing wrong with you per
Hmm.
se. You know, whatever you feel, you like, and like I said earlier, you could walk when you do walk out, of that space. There's something else that's something else that's going to be heavy. There's something else that's going to weigh on you. It doesn't automatically get better like that. And who you are is who you are when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're depressed. It's who you are in that moment. And Margaret, and I think our entire team on the show, we all show a little bit of that. We don't judge one another.
Right.
Don gets to be Don. Margaret gets to be Margaret. Lacey gets to be Lacey, and Gabby gets to be Gabby, and they let Zeke be Zeke. There's no judgment in that space, very much like a therapist office where they get to just be themselves and hold each other accountable, talk about things. It's a very safe place for the entire team. So with the trauma that they've all gone through, losing someone or being kidnapped themselves, they've created a very safe space for one another to just be.
There was also an episode where Gabby points out like the younger generation is very empathetic. I feel like though, like obviously it's a little bit of a melting pot at M&A. Like it's different generations, it's different backgrounds. They seem to be very empathetic, maybe because of what they've gone through, or maybe are just good people in general. Do you feel like that's bleeding into your life at all? Do you feel like this show or this experience, this character is changing the way you are viewing certain people, certain situations in a like judgmental or judgment-free zone?
I think overall, me specifically, I've always been my heart is big. When I see people, I see love, I see light. Whether you are quote unquote a good guy, bad guy, I'm always like, okay, but what's behind that story, right? So for me, playing Zeke has doubled down on that. You don't know till you know. You don't know what someone is going through. You don't know what's behind that mask that they're wearing. You meet someone, they're driving. You not meet someone, you're driving someone, cuts you off and
Mm.
they're grumpy, they're this, they're that. I have no idea what you went through that morning. I have no idea what job you're trying to get to that you have to get to. I have no clue. Uh, Zeke found has really given me the ability to just slow down a little bit, overthink it just a little bit to
Mm.
say, I'm gonna let this one just breathe. I'm not sure what's going on there. Yeah, she was really rude, but I hope she has a better day. Whatever.
I mean, that's honestly probably healthier. I feel like I watch the show and I'm very judgmental, not necessarily about the main characters, but certainly about the people of the week. Like Tony, I was like, yeah, okay, he's a kid, but like it wasn't his first time. He didn't accidentally traffic this boy. This was like we have to, maybe it's my age, maybe it's the way I grew up, but I'm very much like, there still should be consequences. Like you could still want him to not be shot, to wake up from that coma and to come home. But
So I agree with you 100%. I think, but that's what the show does very, very well. The way they create these characters, they're not one-sided. They're not your typical characters. You wouldn't have expected Tony, a kid. Wait, how? Why? And that becomes the good question after you finish the episode. Why would a kid do that?
right.
What is he getting from that? And better yet, what is he missing that somehow this is filling that void for him? That becomes the question. And then our show is more than just obviously bringing someone home, but we're also shedding the light that, across the board, we are damaged people
Mm.
and we have to, view ourselves in that way. Nobody should be viewed as ideal or perfect or, at least unfound. Listen, everybody's a suspect.
Everyone's a suspect, and I will say everyone is also kind of a victim, because I will say, like, even going into season 2, the things we've learned about Sir's background, I'm like, oh no, they're gonna make him more sympathetic, aren't they?
You have to unpack that. You have to unpack that. There, behind every villain origin story, there is something. Oh my God, so interesting there. Like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. We
Yeah.
loved it. We loved it. Why? Because he gave us the origin story of the Joker's pain when he wasn't laughing. What is that laughter covering up? What are the jokes covering up? So yeah, basically we're all superheroes. That's it.
I mean, it's a nice way to look at it. I'm so cynical that I'm like, I don't know. I obviously want to talk about like what is influencing you these days, but I also want you to just, for everybody who has been waiting for season 2 of Found, it's about to come out. Can you tease what to expect, not just for Zeke, but like this new dynamic with Sir now, quote unquote, on the loose? How much, and obviously Gabby's secret is no longer a secret, so I know that's going to change dynamics. What do you feel like is the biggest shift we'll see in the beginning of season 2?
I think the biggest shift that you'll see in season 2 of Found is that we're going to be tested as a group, tested as a family. Like I said earlier, we created a very safe space, one of honesty, one of truth, one of transparency. That's no longer the case. And now this is when we will find out how much we really care, love one another. Can we still do our jobs? Do I still look at you the same? Zeke specifically, met Gabby through therapy, and there's a lot of trust there.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Not anymore. I don't know if I can trust you the same because you wore a mask for me and you didn't have to, or at least I didn't think you had to, right? And now the weight that she was carrying, that secret, it's been distributed amongst the rest of the team, and I don't know if all of us or any of us are strong enough to carry that weight that she was carrying the way she did. It's going to shift and change everybody.
I would also imagine that at least for someone, it has to be pre-triggering, right? Like there has to be something where they're, hey, she was my boss, my friend, she's a savior, she's a hero, but also she's as bad as the people that kidnapped us, or is maybe that too extreme? And maybe we're not playing with that.
All of that and then some. You know, the nice way to say it is she's human. You know, that she's flawed, that she's not perfect. But in general, regular terms, we're looking at her and we're saying you're a liar. You're fake. It's painful. It's gonna be painful for everybody season 2.
So exciting. I mean, it is exciting, but also like when you set it up as it's going to be painful, I worry. You know what I mean? Like I worry. I'm like, what is that going to do for the audience? Like how on a scale, let me ask you this. On a scale of like whatever normal blood pressure is to like 190 death, where do you feel like we'll be in the season premiere?
I think they're gonna push the envelope in a good way. You know, there's balance there, but in order to get to certain places, we're gonna have to go through some stuff. We have to, because otherwise we are just another procedural on TV. Something that found is not, we are not just a run-of-the-mill normal procedure. We have layers, levels, texture, and depth that has to be played with, and these things have to, Pandora's box has to open. And so we're gonna go get in there, we're gonna get our hands dirty, and you're gonna feel all the feels, and then we're gonna try to figure out a way to patch you up, make you feel better, bring people home, educate you at the same time, and and then Mark Paul is gonna squint and do his thing, and you're gonna smile like that. Exactly.
Well, let me ask you in terms of like Zeke's journey in the first few episodes, because I was talking a lot about like healing versus coping, and now this new thing has been thrown on top of that journey. Are there setbacks? Like what does it look like for him in terms of processing this information about his friend, but also still having to deal with cases on top of things? And I'm going to be honest, like he's still paying for everything. And my first thought is like he should threaten to stop paying for things.
Well, thankfully Zeke doesn't walk into a conversation or a room with it standing on his wallet, so that's a good thing. Otherwise, that probably would have been the first thing he did. You know, like petty,
Right.
no, it's mine, right? So thankfully that's not who he is. However, it will be a challenge for Zeke now because, like I said before, the outside world was scary for him. This M&A family has been safe. It's no longer safe. So that is 100% going to lean into his agoraphobia, because agoraphobia does not always mean I can't leave this room per se. It can be just an energy thing. It could be I could be agoraphobic, but I can drive. I just can't turn down that one street. Can't drive a hill. My mom can't get on the freeway. She's gotten a little bit better over time, but she can drive on the street. But certain freeways, certain specific ones are a no-no for her. You know, and that's what's going to happen with Zeke now. He's going to have to figure out how he can maneuver in this new trauma that has entered his safe space.
Right, right. So because the show, as you use the word painful, but I'm going to use the word intense because I think it's like
Yeah, intense is good.
A nicer way of saying you're going to have fun, but your blood pressure is going to be up. Because that is so heavy, I guess, and intense in your day-to-day world in terms of work. What does that mean for you, like off work? What are the things in pop culture that you're gravitating towards? Is it similar things in this vein because you need to immerse yourself? Or do you feel like, no, I go 180 and I go completely like, again, back to cartoons, back to lighter fun?
It depends on the day. It depends on the day. So I wake up to cartoons and I fall asleep to cartoons.
Still Turtles or like different cartoons?
You want me to lit? I can.
Yeah.
So we've got Transformers, Thundercats, He-Man, Jetsons, Smurfs, Teen Wolf. Come on, Teen Wolf. Uh, Care Bears, OG Care Bears.
Okay.
Everything.
I was gonna say the new stuff. I think that some of the newer, when they reboot with modern technology, I don't think it looks right, and I think it's just a nostalgic thing. I think like other people don't care.
The new Ultron is ridiculously good. X-Men coming back.
That's true.
I can go down the list, right? But in between the sandwich of those things, of that my safety net of cartoons, Donald Glover, Atlanta, 100%. I'll watch it over and over and over again. I loved the Mr. and Mrs. Smith. What else is on there? Oh my gosh, it was Donald. It was definitely Atlanta. Oh my God, where's my brain right now?
That's a good one though.
It's phenomenal. And that show specifically, I'll say, they had great balance. It was fun, it was funny, and then that last season, it went what I call Black Mirror
Mm.
style, where it questioned anything and everything that is the world we live in now. That Goofy episode, the goof who sat by the door. Ah,
Well,
like I literally finished the episode and I was like, wait a minute, let me see. Is it real? Did this really happen?
that's kind of
Yeah.
why I'm asking, because like I always find it fascinating, like when you're in a creative field and then you're looking for other creative things to just partake in as a fan or just, to unwind. How much do you feel like the things that you're like Donald, I guess, and Atlanta specifically, when you gravitate towards that, can you separate? Can you just be a fan, or are you looking at it and studying it and saying like, oh man, that's a performance that I'm thinking about how I would do it, or that's a show I would love to be on, or, the combination, I guess, of like work and play.
I think it ends up being both because I'm obviously like, the veil has been pulled back from me and I know, we're creating something that we're playing pretend per se. I'm definitely able to just sit back and study and watch angles, edit, sound, like acting choices. All of those things are there 100%. But then there's certain shows like in Atlanta, The Harder They Fall,
Mm.
any Jordan Peele touches, Misha Green, Lovecraft Country. There are certain shows that I sit back, I want popcorn, I want a snack, and I'm down the rabbit hole with them. I believe it. And I think those shows I believe, and I'm able to fall in like a fan because they make me feel something. They make me when I'm thinking, I'm also feeling. When I'm feeling, I'm thinking. It goes for me. It goes hand in hand. They don't
Yeah.
always separate. So I love when I can lose myself in something dope like that.
Yeah. Although all the things you listed, I mean, they're genre bending in a lot of ways, but I feel like all of them still have a lot of intensity and trauma to a lot of this, like not maybe not all the way through. I mean, certainly Lovecraft Country all the way through. Most of Jordan Peele stuff, Get Out. I think like once you realize what was going on, you realized all the way through. I mean, The Harder They Fall all the way through. Like it starts in such a heavy place.
I feel like all of those shows to me they fall under in my mind what I almost call it the Quentin Tarantino umbrella.
Okay, yeah.
And underneath that umbrella, well, first off, that umbrella has holes in it, and it has holes in it on purpose, so that way something can get through, and the others get filtered out, right? And then underneath that umbrella, you create something that is so dynamic and different than what your mind has taught you, what you might have read in them. It just challenges you. It's so bold and just and I think that's just the thing that I gravitate towards.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense too. I mean, I will say like a lot of these people that you just name checked are multi-hyphenates, and I know you've produced before as well. So like, are you also looking at these things from that lens?
100%. My fiance and I just worked in this amazing project called The Newlyweds, and one of the things there that we play with, we're playing with the zombie world, in a different way than what you've seen before. There's certain things that are obviously zombie staples, but
Hmm.
we're doing a couple of festivals coming soon, so it'll start leaking out and so forth. But yes, 100%. When it comes to producing, when it comes to creating, my goal is to 100% push the envelope, be bold, be different. Um, there's certain stories to me that even when I hear them, like obviously Wizard of Oz, right? Let's
Hmm.
think of Wizard of Oz, for example. We know the Yellow Brick Road and so forth. Now we have Wicked. Then we have there was that Tin Man series that they did on TV, all different versions of the Wizard of Oz. So when I read a book or when I watch a movie or I hear a story, I'm always thinking, oh my gosh, what's on the other side of
Hmm.
that shape, So yeah,
Well, yeah, because anybody can be the hero of their own story. It depends on like whose perspective is telling the story, which now is just leading me back to Found because I'm like, if we were telling this story from Zeke's point of view, I wonder how different it would be.
oh, that's very very interesting.
And
love it.
I don't know if it would be very different only because his some of his trauma is so similar to Gabby's trauma.
Yeah, but he's also not as strong as Gabby, or it doesn't appear to be. I'll say
I
that.
was gonna say I don't know because I think like she presents herself as very strong, but I feel like once she revealed everything at the end of season one to them, I feel like that right away says, well, you're not as strong as you think you are because you did this terrible thing that was, oh, I think a weakness. And then you're also, I hate to say this, but like the more she would rely on Sir to help solve the cases, I feel like undermined her own superhero power a little bit because it was like, well, I think you could have solved them without him, but you didn't think you could solve them without him. You kept going to him.
You're basically in her head right now. That's exactly where we want you to be. That's exactly where we want you to be, because it challenges how we view her. And that's the cool thing watching the show. So the audience will obviously get that. Now we get the rest of the team getting that exact same thing. They're deciding now who she is when we look at her. Is she who you thought she was, or are you someone else?
Right. Right. So just big circle, I guess, in terms of all of these things that we're talking about from various points of history and pop culture and also like different genres, different creators, etc. Is there is there anything that you feel like from the time you were like a very young kid, thinking about dreaming about being an actor, being a performer, to actually going out and doing it, that you feel like you could not have achieved that dream without learning or seeing a piece of the history of whatever it was, film, TV, etc.?
Ask me that again.
I mean, it's a very broad, like big question. I get really like when I distill it down, what the question really is like, where do you feel like your biggest lesson that helped you get to where you are came from in pop culture? Like if there was something.
I'll tell you exactly what it is. Acting, expressing myself, makes me feel very good about myself. That's why I became an actor. I was like, oh my gosh, this feels good. I didn't think I could do something, and I did it, right? Not only that, I did it, and now I get to live in the box. I get to be in the box that I grew up, watching and loving, and it hugged me. Now I get to hug it back. So with the pop culture thing, like I'll tell you some moments way back when they did a super sloppy double dare at Universal Studios.
Yeah.
Super sloppy double dare. So me and my friend went and did it in person. Like I'm getting now to be exactly what I love. I'm part of it, and I try not to control it. I'm enjoying the journey. I'm loving the rejection because that's protection, and everything the way it comes at me, I'm just really just flowing with it, and then hoping that one day, somebody somewhere is watching something that I'm on and is being affected the way I was affected with all of these different pop culture references. I'll give you a quick example, and it's always back to Ninja Turtles for me.
I mean, I was going to go back there anyway. So you go first.
So I had an audition. This is when James Avery was still alive. I had an audition that morning because I go to sleep to cartoons and I fall asleep to cartoons. I was watching the Rambo cartoon, and he was the voice of the Black General in the Rambo cartoon. I get to this audition that morning, and there's James Avery. And I was like, oh my gosh, Uncle Phil. That's what I said in my head. And so I talked to him and I was like, hey, I said, it's so cool. Like I was just listening to you this morning as the on the Rambo cartoon. He was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've done so many voiceover, so much voiceover works. And he starts naming these things, goes da da da, blah blah blah, Ninja Turtles. And I was like, I'm sorry, who are you in Ninja Turtles? And he looked at me and he said,
Uh-oh.
I was him. And he did Shredder's voice. And I got this chill down my body and happy at the same time, Like, so from a pop culture standpoint, I hope that one day I get to that place that somebody sees something that I'm on and feels something or triggers something, or they carry it with them and it motivates them to do, something amazing in their life, because for me, there's staples and tentpoles all over my career that is pop culture that literally now still they hold me up. They
Yeah.
hold me up. They've shaped exactly who I am.
Well, the funny thing is you kind of already went where I was going to go when I said I wanted to bring it back to Ninja Turtles because I mentioned earlier, like there's reboots, there's revivals, there's all these different things. When you love something that much, are you trying to get those jobs? Are you trying to be the voice on the next Ninja Turtles? Or do you feel like, no, I can't be a part of that box. That is one box that I will leave over there to just be a fan of.
I need to be and should be and will be in anything Ninja Turtles. I've actually already put in my bid for the last Ronin. I've been reaching out to any and everyone that I know that is attached to the project. So much so that one of the responses that I got is, "We are still writing." Process, Arlen, but we know how much you love Ninja Turtles. When I did Into the Storm, they knew I loved Ninja Turtles so much that one day, I think it might have been, was it my birthday? It could have been my birthday, but they had Ninja Turtle pictures everywhere. Lift up the toilet seat, Ninja Turtle. Sit down in the trailer for hair and makeup, Ninja Turtle. And then there was a scene that didn't make it into the movie where my character Daryl was praying in the church, for these tornadoes to end and all this other stuff. And they're like, Arlen, come look at the monitor. It looks really good. I was like, no, it's okay. I trust you guys. I said, you guys are good. They said, no, come look at the monitor. So what they did, they had me come at the monitor and you see my character there, eyes closed, praying. And they superimposed Leonardo from the first movie where he is meditating to try to reach Master Splinter. They superimposed him next to me. So I got a screenshot of that somewhere in my phone. So yeah, I definitely want to and should be in everything Ninja Turtles.
Okay. Okay. No, listen, it's bold, it's brave because I would say if when I love things so much, I sometimes don't even like the new versions of them.
Yeah.
So I would worry about like, but if I'm in it and then I don't like the new version of it, what happens?
It's then you realize it's not for you anymore. It's for another generation. There's and you got to be okay with that. You got to hold on to what you're holding on to, and you got to let these other people take it where they take it and do what they do. But then hopefully, you know, they carry the legacy.
It's a really good way of looking at it. I am, again, a cynical person, so I'm a little saltier than that, but we will try. And we will certainly have to email everybody I know and see and see where they are, if they're still writing or what's happening. Thank you so much for coming on, though.
I'm a pizza guy. I'm a new version of Casey Jones if you want. There are options there. I'll work at the news station. It doesn't matter.
Oh, I mean, but the thing is, you don't even know what they're writing yet. You could be some like great new villain. You may want to play the new villain.
I'll be the guy that sells April her yellow jumpsuit at a store. It doesn't matter.
Amazing. Okay. Before I let you go, you know the drill. I have to go ahead and share where you can find the things that we discussed so that you can experience them for yourselves. And as always, nobody is paying me to say a particular website's name or call out a certain streamer. There's no sponsorship involved. I'm just doing this for ease for all of you. So let's go back. Arlen talked about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise from his childhood influence. And let's start with the comics. I'm always going to say support a local comic shop. If there's not one in your area, or if you just don't want to go outside, I hear you. Online shopping, easy. There's probably comics available on Amazon, Target. You can search for it. You could probably even find your local comic shop online and buy them that way. But the TV and movie catalog available on Paramount Plus. Then we pivot to his more modern day influences. And he mentioned a few things in rapid fire. Donald Glover's Atlanta, available on Hulu. Misha Green's Lovecraft Country, available on Max. Jordan Peele's catalog, available on Apple TV Plus. The Harder They Fall movie, available on Netflix. And of course, Arlen's show, NBC's Found, which means, yes, it airs episodes on NBC. If you are not a cord cutter, if you still have linear television, you can watch new episodes of season 2 on Thursdays, but they also stream on Peacock. So for those of us, and I do say us because I cut the cord a long time ago, those of us who want to watch streaming, available on Peacock. So once again, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for liking, commenting, subscribing, following. If you haven't done those latter things, please consider it. We will see you back here next week for a brand new episode of Made Possible by Pop Culture, the podcast. Season 2.